In this verse, Lord Krishna indicates that it is very rare to become a pure devotee. It's very rare for the conditioned souls to become pure devotees. The reason for this is because everyone in this material world is here because of envy of Krishna. It is an extremely diseased condition. That instead of being in our natural position of wanting to serve Krishna, we are in the unnatural position of not wanting to serve Krishna. So even though many people may take to some kind of spiritual life, very few relatively become interested in Krishna consciousness. In India and now all over the world, you'll find people practicing all different kinds of yoga and different kinds of spiritual paths with no mention of Krishna. Even Time magazine, which is the world's most influential demoniac magazine, published in America, they did an article recently on yoga, because so many people in America and all over the world are practicing yoga. There was no mention even of India, the fact that it originated in India, and it's very much another Vedic culture. So, but even the yogis, they have no contact with Krishna, or even some spiritualists who study Shastra, they'll mention Krishna, but they attempt to relativize him. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. That means that he is supremely independent. He does not fit into any material category. But they will mention him and say he is an incarnation of the mode of goodness. They may superficially praise him by saying he was a great philosopher. But that's not actually praise. That if you say he's a great philosopher, that means, well, Krishna was a great philosopher, and Bertrand Russell was a great philosopher, and Plato was a great philosopher. Even Krishna was almost as good as Plato. That's like going up to the head of the police force in the whole of Russia and saying that you're a very good sergeant of police. And if you said that to a constable, then he might be flattered. If you say it to someone who's on a much higher level, it may sound like a compliment, but actually it's an insult. So people are reluctant to recognize the supremacy of Krishna. Even sometimes you find people in the West interested in esoteria, as it's come to be known. And they may attend our Krishna conscious programs thinking that it's something esoteric. But almost always, if we speak the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to these people, they become disturbed. Because the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is very straightforward and clear. We are all servants of Krishna, and we should simply surrender to him. He is the absolute truth, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And say, no, why only Krishna? They don't like a very clear philosophy. They want it to be very vague. Which means actually they're not really interested in philosophy at all. They're just interested in the sense gratification of considering themselves spiritual and showing to others that they are very spiritual. And they equate spiritual life with some kinds of visions or dreams or out-of-body experiences, all these things. But to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that not many people are very interested. Of course, in Russia there's more response. But still we see more people are interested in looking after their chickens than chanting Hare Krishna. They're all preparing to become chickens in their next life. As the devotees, well, maybe they'll become parrots in Vrindavan. That's a different. So actually, it's not so common to come to Krishna consciousness. Only people who are very, very fortunate take to Krishna consciousness. Now, often we find that people who are materially unfortunate, they take to Krishna consciousness. But that material misfortune, if that is the impetus for them to come to Krishna consciousness, then that is actually their greatest good fortune. Just like when I look back on this life before I came to Krishna consciousness, I find it was all suffering, completely miserable. Not that I had a life spectacularly different to anybody else's, but somehow I was feeling totally miserable. So that's good, because of that, then I was able to come to this Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, even people may like the devotees, but unless they have some impetus to, they won't actually take to Krishna consciousness. Just like we see when we go chanting Harinam, many people, they look and they smile and they think it's nice, very nice. And then they go and take their lunch. And they're thinking this ham roll and beer, this is very nice. And they may say to their friends, did you see those Krishnaites dancing? That was also very nice. And the sun is shining today, that's also very nice. So, it's nice the Krishnaites are dancing. I'm not going to join them because I'm happy eating my ham roll in the sunshine. Let them be happy in their way, and I'll be happy in my way. It's a very common idea these days, isn't it? Just let everyone do whatever they like, whatever you like, if it makes you happy, it's okay. Everything is okay. Therefore Krishna says, only one among many millions of people come to me. Because everyone is complacent in this material world. And even if they take to so-called spiritual life, they are very much averse to the sense of surrender to Krishna. Of course, now is the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is to pick up all the fallen, foolish, rascals, idiots, and make them into devotees. So even though it's generally very rare for someone to become a pure devotee of Krishna, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's grace, it has now become very easy. And the process is so easy and attractive that anybody can take it up. Generally, to make any kind of spiritual advancement, one has to be born in India. One cannot follow the Vedic process unless he's within the Varnashram Dharma, which is practiced in India. So if one is born within the Varnashram system, then he can perform his duties according to his Varna and Ashram, and gradually become advanced from the level of Shudra to Vaishya to Kshatriya to Brahmana. And then after practicing as a Brahmana for some time, he may come to the realization, actually this material world is miserable. And then come out of the Karma Kanda to the Jnana Marg, the path of knowledge. But then again, similar thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Ahunam janmanamante jnanavam mam vipattite vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. Which may be the translation. After many births, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So normally the system is one has to be born in India and gradually promoted to the platform of spiritual knowledge and then to the platform of Krishna consciousness after many births. Now here we all are in Russia. This is not the land of spiritual life. But here, people, you're all chanting Hare Krishna. That means on a level higher than that of those following the Varnashram system. On the path of bhakti yoga, pure devotional service. Savai pungsam paro dharma yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahaitukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. This is the topmost religious path. Pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adhoksaja, who is not perceivable by the mundane senses. That pure devotional service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted, and then it will completely satisfy the soul. So this is the mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we have received through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his followers in disciplic succession, who have taken up the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Prati Ghare Ghare Giya Karo E Bhikha Bhaja Krishna Balo Krishna Karo Krishna Shikha. The mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to go door to door and beg people to worship Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, and learn about Krishna. Now, this is the tremendous mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, that we who are not fit, which can normally be considered not fit for spiritual life, are now able to take to this topmost system of religion, Krishna consciousness. That very rare gift of Krishna consciousness which could not be attained in many, many lifetimes, we can take it very easily by the grace of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now in this verse, Lord Krishna states that many people may take up spiritual life, but very few attain perfection. Now we see that similarly many people take up Krishna consciousness, but different people take it up with different levels of seriousness. So some people take to Krishna consciousness and they chant and they follow, and then they go away. It's actually quite amazing that someone who has changed their life so much that they've given up meat, fish, eggs, gambling, intoxication, vodka, tea, coffee, all these things, and then again they go back. They made such a big change in their life. They were very, very serious. One has to be serious about Krishna consciousness to give up all these things for the sake of serving Krishna. But still, nevertheless, some people, even after taking up Krishna consciousness, and sometimes even after practicing for some years, go back to old bad habits. So the reasons for this could be analyzed in various ways. Prabhupada in one purport speaks about complacency in the transcendental position. In other words, someone is not very careful. And even though he may be very advanced, then Maya can gradually capture him. You can just imagine if you are living with a tiger. So you, by some technique, you may be able to tame it. But even if there are actually people who they keep tigers as pets, especially if they take them from the babyhood when they're a cub, then they bring them up. It's possible to keep a tiger as a pet. So even if the tiger is your pet and it appears to be quite tame, you should always remember that it's a tiger. And if he or she just becomes, she is more ferocious than the tiger is. But if the tiger, just one time they become a little angry with you, then you're finished. So we're living with our minds. So we may think, now my mind is under control. So no need to be very careful. The tiger of our mind will gobble us up. Recently I was in Czech Republic, and one new devotee was telling me that she had asked some older devotees that why do they watch TV? He said, no, we're not affected. Why are you drinking cyanide?
Why drinking?
Why are you drinking cyanide? Cyanide mixture. I won't be affected. So, in other words, they're saying, I'm so strong in Krishna consciousness, I can do anything, I won't be affected. Actually, if you're strong, you won't want to watch all that nonsense. It means they've become gobbled up by the tiger of mind. Because they've become complacent. They've thought that, well, I've been chanting Hare Krishna so many years. Why not watch the TV? Only a few minutes. What is the harm? Even one moment without serving Krishna or remembering Krishna is a great disaster. If you read in the newspapers, you'll find there are so many catastrophes. There's like another story from the Czech Republic. One devotee wrote to me that there's a huge flood in Prague, and the whole city was severely flooded for the worst time in more than 500 years. So it was a great disaster, billions of dollars worth of damage. But even if it wasn't flooded, it would have still been a disaster. Prague is anyway every day a disaster. Not only Prague, but also Moscow and Nabrizhny Chelny and London and Paris and every city of the world. The disaster is that everyone is forgetting Krishna. And in our own lives, if we don't remember Krishna, that's also a disaster. There's an even greater disaster if, after getting the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, we engage in activities that will spoil our Krishna consciousness. So we want to see that devotees take up Krishna consciousness and they go on steadily and strongly and remain firm on the path. Don't waver. Or even if because of Maya we waver, we should keep on going. Actually, we require so many devotees to preach this Krishna consciousness. It's a fact. It's not just a figure of speech, but it's a fact that great disaster is going on at every moment. That people are living and dying without knowing Krishna. Every devotee should think how to bring Krishna consciousness to others. Bring Krishna consciousness to others and help those who are already in Krishna consciousness to become strong. When we first come to Krishna consciousness, we're just trying to understand what is the basic philosophy. But after some time, when we become a little strong, then we should try to help others who are coming in newly. And not only help those who are new, but sometimes even all the devotees need some help. Maya is such that she may strike even experienced devotees. So it's important that we go out and preach and bring new people to Krishna consciousness. But even more important is to help those who are already in Krishna consciousness to remain strong. Those who are steady on the path, they should remain so. Become fixed and remain so. Here in this verse, Krishna speaks about the one person among many who becomes fully Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada used to quote a couplet from the teachings of Chanakya Pandit with a similar import. Ekas chandrastamo hanti kinna taragamo picha. That one moon is sufficient to destroy the darkness. What is the use of many stars? We see in the sky at night, of course in the city you may not see very much, but in the country you'll see millions and millions of stars. But on a new moon night, even if the sky is clear, you may see millions of stars, but you can hardly see your finger in front of your face if you're in the country away from the neon lights. But when there is a full moon, then you can, it's fully bright and you can run in night. You can see the path so clearly. So the moon is also one of the stars. Nakshatranam aham shashi, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, among the stars I am the moon. But the moon is unique among all the stars. Because the moon gives more light than all the stars combined. So Prabhupada used to say to his disciples that you become like moons. The moon gives light to the world. It's especially significant that the moon gives light in a situation which is inherently dark, namely the night. So this material world is a place of darkness inasmuch as there is the darkness of ignorance, of lack of knowledge of Krishna. But if there is one devotee who is like a moon, then he can give light for everyone to take advantage of.
Krishna.
Just like we see Prabhupada, he was one person, but by his effort, the whole world, which is lacking knowledge of Krishna, Achaitanyadam Vishvam, this whole world was devoid of knowledge of Krishna, but Prabhupada gave knowledge of Krishna. So Prabhupada used to say, I am one person, but you, all my disciples, you take up this work and spread it more. So we request all the devotees to become like moons spreading the pleasing radiance of Krishna consciousness all over the world. You don't have to change your position. In whatever position you are, be an ideal devotee. If you are a housewife, you can show an ideal example of how to be a housewife in Krishna consciousness. If you are a grihasta man, you can perform your duty of earning money for the family and at the same time preach Krishna consciousness, and in this way be ideal. If you are a brahmachari, then actually be a brahmachari. Brahmachari iti brahmachari. Brahmacharya means to act always on the spiritual plane. And it should not be vyabhichari. That's another word which means lampat, licentious. Vyabhichari literally means one who indulges in loose sex life. Licentious. And similarly, if one is a sannyasi, then he shouldn't be, as it's called, a Ladu sannyasi. Simply collecting ladus. Taking sannyas to fill with them. Actually, a Brahmin, he is supposed to use his tongue in the service of the Lord. That is known in Vedic culture, that one should feed the Brahmanas. So some Brahmanas, they go from place to place and they accept meals and they accept some donation, and in this way they live comfortably. So yes, a Brahman is supposed to use his tongue in the service of the Lord. But eating is maybe for what? Maximum half an hour a day. Although Brahmana Bhojana Priya, it is said that Brahmanas, they like to eat for more time. But Actually, there's the balanced time they're supposed to use their tongue in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead to others. So try to become ideal devotees. It is every devotee's duty to become a great personality. How does a devotee become great? Once Tamal Krishna Maharaj, well, he's incomparable actually, a unique leader in our Krishna consciousness movement, he told a story that in the early days of the Krishna conscious movement, Brahmananda Prabhu, he was heading up the ISKCON in New York. And on the other side of America, in Los Angeles, Tamal Krishna Prabhu at that time was heading up the Krishna consciousness movement. So Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna that you should become big like Brahmananda. So Brahmananda was essentially a huge devotee, physically, so with a legendary ability to consume prasada. I mean, even in those days, the average devotee had about 10 times more than the average karma, at least. That was Prabhupada's. He told, feed the devotees so much that they can't go away, they physically won't be able to go. But even among the devotees who are like world eating champions, eating championships in the Olympics, the devotees would win all the medals. But even among them, so Brahmananda, he was the leader of the devotees in all ways, and especially in taking prasadam. So Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna that you should become big like Brahmananda. So when the devotees heard this, they thought, well, we better start feeding him lots of prasadam. So by the time Tamal Krishna Maharaj had Prabhu at that time, he had become like double in weight. He suddenly thought, well, maybe Prabhupada meant I should become a big leader in Krishna consciousness and not big in body. So you should all become big devotees. Who's cooking this morning? Tell him to cook 10 times more immediately. They all have to become big devotees. You don't like prasadam? But actually, how do you become a big devotee? By becoming the grain of dust at the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. If someone thinks, I'm going to become a big devotee. I'm going to become a big devotee. Okay, you're all little devotees, I'm a big devotee. I'm very big, and you're only very small.
Yeah.
Not like that. When one has a very sincere desire to serve the mission of Krishna, then Krishna may bless him in various ways. By developing our service mood with humility, then Krishna may bless us to perform so many services. So let us try to do more and more in Krishna's service. Become more and more fixed in understanding of Krishna. And understand our great responsibility to spread this movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to others. And at the same time remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's fundamental instruction that you always have to remain very, very humble devotees. So sometimes this may seem to be like a contradiction. Once some of Prabhupada's disciples, some Matajis in Los Angeles again, they asked him a question. That they said, we're going out to distribute your books. Prabhupada said, very good. I like that very much. They said, to do that we have to be somewhat aggressive. But devotees are supposed to be humble. And especially by reading your books, they said, we understood that Matajis are supposed to be humble and shy. So they asked, how should we behave? Prabhupada said, be aggressive for Krishna. The devotee is naturally very humble. But if required, you can do anything for the service of Krishna. Just like if you see the picture of Hanuman. If you see the picture of Hanuman with Ram, then he'll always be bowed down on one knee with his very hands folded together in an expression of humble supplication to his worshipful Lord Ram. There are other pictures of Hanuman also burning Lanka, because he went to Lanka and then he was fighting there and he allowed himself to be captured. Because after he had caused so much damage in Lanka, then he thought, this is the way I can get to see Ravana. I'll make a big nuisance, then I'll let them arrest me, then they'll take me to see Ravana. So Ravana, after he was captured, he said that monkeys are very fond of their tails, so burn his tail. So with his tail burning, Hanuman again escaped from their capture and then went around with his tail, setting fire to all the palaces, granaries, and so on. So someone might say, Hanuman, you're not being very humble. This is not the behavior of Vaishnava. This is the behavior of Vaishnava. If you're quiet, you can be aggressive for Krishna. But then when Hanuman came back to Ram, when he came back from Lanka, he didn't say, hey, you see, I burned down Lanka and, I did so many great things. He gave a report, but very humbly, that by your grace, I was able to do this and this and this. You'll see like this with Prabhupada also, even though Prabhupada performed unprecedented service in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. But Prabhupada never took any personal credit. He always used to say, it's simply all my Guru Maharaj's mercy. You must have seen that clip from the film, again in Los Angeles, Prabhupada was speaking, very famous section. Prabhupada said, I have no personal qualification, I simply try to follow the instructions of my Guru. Have you seen that film clip? And Prabhupada was arriving in Los Angeles, and devotees had come from all over America, huge opulent temple, hundreds of devotees, all the newspapers full of pictures of devotees chanting and on TV, everything, big reception. Just a few years earlier, Prabhupada had arrived in America as, from the external point of view, just like an unknown beggar. So certainly Prabhupada had done something very wonderful. But Prabhupada said, I have not done anything, I have no qualification, only this one qualification. I tried to please my spiritual master. So try to do something for Krishna, in whatever capacity you can. If we try sincerely, we may have to struggle for something. Don't think that you'll go out and distribute books for 3 days and then the whole of Tatarstan will surrender to Krishna. It won't happen so easily. There will be some struggle. There may be many struggles. But if we simply try to please Krishna, he will reciprocate. And even if the result is not apparently very wonderful, still we should try to serve Krishna. One of my godbrothers is Radhanath Prabhu, Brahmachari, not Radhanath Maharaj, different. So, he used to be a book distributor many years ago on that famous Radha Damodar Sankirtan. I don't know exactly what happened, but for many years he's been confined to a wheelchair. And naturally he has so many health problems because he doesn't have any exercise and everything. He lived in Bombay for several years, always very cheerful, and always preaching. People would come to his room and he would preach to them. And I heard that he's been living in a cabin in the forest in California for the last few years. He has one devotee assisting him. He's sending letters out to so many people all around the world. He's preaching to them, keeping regular contact. And he also goes out every day for book distribution. He has this old ramshackle vehicle which is designed, it's been adjusted so he can sit in it. And his assistant devotee drives him into the town and he sits in front of the store and distributes books. And even though the store doesn't like it, and even though it's illegal, he just keeps on going, and somehow or other, because he's an invalid and this and that, he gets away with it. I just got information that he has to have both of his legs amputated below the knee. So there's this really unstoppable determination in devotional service. He has so many material disadvantages that most people would just dedicate their whole lives just to looking after their bodies. But he's doing much more preaching even than many devotees who are physically much more healthy. It just goes to prove if you have the desire, you can preach Krishna consciousness. So please do it. Become a moon. Give light in this world of darkness. Prabhupada, he said that the moon also has its own light. But he also accepted the modern scientific theory that the moon also reflects the light of the sun. So when we say that you should become like a moon and give light to the world, that means you have to reflect the light that is coming from the sun of Krishna. We cannot do anything ourselves. We never think, Today, I distributed so many books. I made so many devotees. Simply, we shouldn't think like this. We should simply try to make ourselves instruments in the hands of Prabhupada and the Acharyas. Let us try to do what we can. Pray to Krishna to bless us in our endeavors to spread Krishna consciousness. And see the devotees here, they all are very happy in this festival. Is it? They're all happy? Even the living conditions might be a little austere. We're getting very close association with all the devotees, 50 in a room. So it's a little austere. But you're all very happy because you're all chanting and dancing in the association of devotees. Then when we see how miserably people are leading their lives, you'll see people at night, all day they're working in some miserable factory, and at night they stand in the underground subway and drink some beer, and that's it. That's the high point of their life. That is after doing a miserable job all day, what happiness they get standing and drinking some beer in the cold evening. People are suffering. We have to try to help them. Many people, it seems, they know and they like this Krishna conscious movement. When you were going last night through this subway, people are walking towards it, people say, "Oh, you're from Hare Krishna." Many people, they're attracted to this. They can see it's something very nice. But they don't have clear knowledge of what it is. So give them knowledge of Krishna. You, Jagadish and Jagannath, they were distributing books here for some time. All these apartments, they all need proper books. You should fill them up. There's a lot of work to do. Hare Krishna.